Thank you so much for watching Landumc Goes There. Please subscribe and hit the like button and the bell notification button. Moonraker is a 1979 film, which was the 11th in the James Bond series, and the fourth one to star Roger Moore as the fictional agent James Bond. It co-stars Lois Chiles, Michael Lonsdale, Corinne Cleary, and Richard Kyle. The film's producers had originally intended for Your Eyes Only, but chose Moonraker because of the rise in the science fiction genre in the wake of the Star Wars phenomenon. Budgetary issues led to the movie being shot primarily in France, with other locations being Italy, Brazil, Guatemala, and the U.S. The sound stages at Pinewood Studios in England, traditionally used for the series, were only used by the special effects team. The movie had a huge production cost of about $34 million, more than twice as much as The Spy Who Loved Me from 1977. And on its release, it got mixed reviews, but the visuals in the film were praised. The storyline goes that a space shuttle called the Moonraker, built by Drax Industries, is on its way to the UK when it is hijacked in mid-air, and the crew of the 747 carrying it is killed. Bond is immediately called into action and starts the investigation with Hugo Drax. While at the Drax laboratories, Bond meets the brilliant and stunning Dr. Holly Goodhead, a NASA astronaut and CIA agent who is investigating Drax for the U.S. government. One of Drax's thugs, the sinister Chang, attempts to kill 007 at the lab, but when that fails, he follows Bond to Venice and tries again there. Bond and Goodhead follow Drax's trail to Brazil, where they once again run into the 7-foot Goliath Jaws, a towering giant with metal teeth. Escaping from him, they discover the existence of a huge space station undetected by U.S. and Soviet radar, and a horrible plot by Drax to employ nerve gas in a genocidal project. James and Holly must quickly find a way to stop Hugo Drax before his horrific plans can be put into effect. Except for a few brief close-ups, the entire sequence of Bond, Jaws, and the pilot falling from the plane, with Bond and the pilot fighting for a single parachute, was all shot in free fall. The 7-pound camera for these sequences was mounted on the helmet of another skydiver, and a few shots are of the cameraman's own arms and legs. The actual parachutes used by the stuntmen had a main and a reserve chute concealed within their suit coats. A breakaway seam ran down the back, which allowed the parachutes to be opened without the need to remove the coat. There were only 60 to 70 seconds of freefall time between when the stunt performers exited the aircraft and when they had to activate the chutes. After factoring in the time needed to get the performers and the cameraman into position after leaving their plane, only a few seconds of film could be shot per jump. Therefore, the entire sequence required 88 jumps and about 5 weeks to film, just to produce the 2 minutes of footage in the final movie. The producer of the project, Albert Broccoli, called Steven Spielberg and requested permission to use the 5-note music from Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Broccoli wanted to use it as the entry code for an electronic laboratory door lock in the movie. Several years later, Spielberg called Broccoli, requesting permission to use the 007 theme music for a scene in the movie that he was producing titled The Goonies. Broccoli pointed out to him that there were more than 5 notes in that 007 theme music. Spielberg suspected that the producer's tongue was firmly planted in his cheek when he said that. And the Spielberg and Broccoli connection has another twist to it, too. Spielberg expressed a strong interest in directing a Bond movie, but while he was in negotiations with Broccoli, George Lucas contacted him and offered him the script for Raiders of the Lost Ark. Roger Moore had some medical issues during the project, as that he arrived a few days late for the shoot in Rio de Janeiro due to a kidney stone attack in France. Moore had also had a problem with his kidneys while he was filming Live and Let Die. Once he arrived in Rio, he literally walked off the plane, went into makeup and hair, got fitted, went back onto the plane, and was then filmed arriving in Rio as James Bond for the film. Bond's stunt double, veteran skydiver Jake Lombard, bore a real strong resemblance to Roger Moore. That is, after he was persuaded to cut his long hair and to shave off his equally long beard. This allowed many relatively close-up facial shots of Bond in freefall. When the work on the film began, NASA had not yet officially finalized the design of the space shuttle. There were no visible changes made to the shuttle's design, making their rendering of it accurate. When Frank Sinatra was approached to sing the theme song, it was called Think of Me, and had music composed by John Barry and lyrics written by Paul Williams. After he turned it down, Barry and Hal David wrote Moonraker, and Johnny Mathis was chosen to sing it. When it was decided that it wasn't working, Barry had a chance meeting with Shirley Bassey, and with the approval of the producer, she recorded the song. Early in the script work and the storyboards for the movie, they had another character who was ultimately dropped from the film. That was a sidekick villain henchman called Rats, who was involved in the cable car sequence with Jaws. James Bond has some of the best one-liners that have double meanings in any movie franchise or single film that I've ever seen. In Moonraker, it was "I believe he's attempting re-entry," or "She's just coming, sir," from the man with the golden gun. But as far as the love scene in this film, with no pun intended, Roger Moore called this the hardest of his career. He states that it was terribly hard to film. He was hanging there with all the blood rushing into his head, clogging up his nose and his eyes. But his co-star in the film, Miss Childs, thoroughly enjoyed making this production with Roger Moore, saying that he never acted like a star at all, that he always included her in dinners and drinks with his family after filming was done. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll continue to chase the classics.